What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Repertoire Report. This is Ray. Justin is out this week and have a lot of interesting stories going on. A lot of different things going on. This is going to be a very food industry heavy podcast where I feel like the last few have been really restaurant focused. This one is going to be very focused on food industry, manufacturing, and also some trends. And then a special shout out to José Andrés for a new project that I think you'll all be interested in. Before we begin, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe, hit like, share with a friend. If you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please follow the podcast, share it. It helps us grow. It helps us get more followers and listeners, which then in turn grows this wonderful community we are building of chefs and people interested in the food industry. All right, so before we get into the stories I wanted to talk about today, I wanted to talk about something that I think hinders a lot of chefs in the food industry. And what I think hinders a lot of chefs in the food industry is the inability to be flexible and to accommodate to your guests. What do I mean by that? I shared some content last week on the effects of GLP-1 in the food industry. We've talked about it a lot on the podcast. I've shared it with Justin. We've talked on our own. And there's some commentary of like GLP-1 is a crutch, therefore it shouldn't be accommodated for, even though the data shows that around 15% of US adults by 2030 will be using these drugs for weight loss purposes. And it kind of just struck a chord for me, not in the sense of the critique of the podcast, but this idea that it's surprising to me in an industry focused and geared towards serving others that we're so resilient or so resistant to pushing our boundaries when it comes to creating food for others. And we're so resistant to changing the way we do things, even though we are meant to serve food for others. If you are a restaurant owner or if you work in the food industry, you're making a product for others to enjoy and consume. And of course, not every product is the same. There are different markets, different customers, different consumers. But I think a big roadblock, a big gap that a lot of chefs need to cover is the ability for themselves to be able to adjust and accommodate people. And it's not just for GLP-1 users. It's for people that are gluten-free, that have celiac disease. It's for vegans. It's for vegetarians. It's for people on strict diets. The people with severe allergies. The reality is that as different cuisines, different restaurants go to market, the market itself is growing. Restaurant labor is needed because more and more people are, if they're not going out to eat, finding different ways to buy food. Buying food is something people will always do, whether it's in restaurants, CPG, takeout, ready to eat, whatever the case is, they're going to look for options. And there's hard data showing that more and more consumers have an allergen, dietary restriction, or a type of food they're looking for, whether it be high in protein, keto, or geared towards their use of GLP-1 weight loss drugs. So that being said, I think one of the biggest things you can do to hurt your career is to not be accommodating. And I was there when I was younger, in culinary school coming out. I was like, I'm just going to cook the food I want to cook. I'm not going to cook for vegans or vegetarians or blah, 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 blah. And then you start to realize, hey, I love vegan cooking. I think the test of a true chef is to be able to cook vegan because you really then get to explore flavors and how to meld them together. And vegetable cookery is such a unique art form, and I love it so much. But I think when you start in this industry, if you never get out of that phase of I'm just going to cook the food I want for the people that want my food, you're really going to hold yourself back. Because you might just see it as you serving your food for a restaurant. But what if a business needs to come to you for consultation because they want to serve more GLP-1 consumers and you don't have any experience in that, or you are off-putting and don't even get that opportunity? What happens if a large section of your community is vegetarian or vegan or chooses to not eat meat on certain days and you don't have any options for them? You will fail as a business. You will fail as a chef in the long term. If you're not waking up to the use of GLP-1 drugs being used, whether or not you think they're a crutch, whether or not you think there's something that should or shouldn't be used for their intended purpose, again, which is another form of judgment, the fact remains that people are using them. And customers that want to dine out are using these options to lose weight or to, assist with other medical needs. It might not even be for weight loss. And to simply just shut that out of your mind is going to hold you back. To not accommodate your diners, your customers, those in the market that want your product will hold you back. It will not hold them back. They'll go elsewhere. There are other options, but it will hold you back. And I say this as someone who was very close-minded when he started out in his cooking career and has learned to love vegan cooking and gluten-free cooking. My girlfriend cannot eat gluten. I've had a lot of fun creating dishes around that guardrail in order for her to enjoy food. I love vegan cooking. Sometimes when I go to restaurants, I order the vegan tasting menu because I want to see what the chef's skills are. I want to see what they can do when there's not protein, animal protein, as an anchor. But that's just me being curious. There's people that literally just don't eat meat. There's people that literally need certain dietary choices to be followed for their health, for their well-being, for whatever they may be using. So to just knock that out, to just say, no, I'm not going to accommodate, holds you back. And you will close doors on yourself. You will shut out customers, and you will not be able to meet the needs of the market. And I think over the next 10 years, what's going to be really, really important is adaptability to not just trends, but customer needs and growing customer markets. 5 years ago, if you were to say, hey, we all need to start getting ready for a segment, 15% population of the American consumer is going to be on weight loss drugs, you would be like, no, what are you talking about? But that's where we are by 2030. And if you're not actively preparing your menu for people to have high nutrient options that satiate them, feel like they've delivered value, and is something that they crave and can actually consume, they will go to the restaurant that does that. They will choose the brand that does that. They will choose the business that cares about them. So that being said, I think it's just a friendly reminder that while we can be brash and work in ego and work in whatever else we think, we're in the hospitality industry. We are an industry that serves others. And if you do not accommodate to them, they will go elsewhere and you will miss out. Do not make that mistake, because the best chefs I know are the ones who have people come in a fine dining setting and one guest has a severe allergy, and that chef works around that allergy to give them the best dining option possible. Or the guest that comes in that has celiac disease, and the chef works around their menu to give them an amazing dining experience that they then leave and go, hey, that restaurant took care of me, I'm going back. Or the food brand that makes specific products for consumers that don't eat meat, and then they go, hey, I love that, I'm going there. Don't close doors, don't burn your own bridges, be accommodating to people. And not every menu item or item on your menu needs to be accommodating. But to have options for people, I think is really important in the food world. And I think it's going to be an important factor in how consumers choose food in the next 10 years. Just some thoughts, a little rant before we get into this. All right, so this first one is from Bloomberg. Chocolate powder shortage is back. So the title of the article is Chocolate Makers Burned Again as Shortages Hit Cocoa Powder. Something for, pastry chefs or just any restaurant owner to be aware of. So the article goes, chocolate makers were already grappling with record prices for cocoa butter, which provides that melt-in-your-mouth feel. Now they are also paying up for the powder that lends their product its color and taste. Cocoa powder is now in short supply. Prices for the key ingredient produced when cocoa beans are ground surged about 16% in the U.S. over the past year and are now trading at a near record. It's the latest twist in a global cocoa crisis that has hurt profits for the world's largest chocolate makers and left consumers paying more for less. Companies from Mars to Hershey have turned to tactics including reducing bar sizes, adding things like nuts, and even promoting non-chocolate products altogether. Again, perfect example for accommodation. Chocolate becomes super expensive. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to make items for your consumers? Here we go. Rocca Chocolate Inc., a New York-based artisan chocolatier, said it's now paying 3 times more for the cocoa powder it uses in its hot chocolate mixes. In a new sauce the company plans to launch this fall, and the product is becoming harder and harder to find. And I'll share the link on this. They share a graph. It's key chocolate ingredients under supply crunch, and then the U.S. imports for consumption of cocoa products in metric tons. And you just see a significant drop of U.S. imports going into 2024, 2025, starting at 2022, it looks like. So it's just interesting to see. I mean, this is something, if you use cocoa powder at all of you use chocolate, I'm sure you're feeling this. But it's just something that's going to be affecting the food industry. So what are the causes? Many causes is disease and weather issues in West Africa, where 70% of the global cocoa comes from. And it's affecting everyone: bakeries, ice cream makers, beverage makers, snack companies. So right now, cocoa butter has actually stabled out, which is funny enough, but powder is very limited. So what can you expect? Higher prices on chocolate products if you're a consumer, higher prices on ingredients if you're obviously a restaurant or a bakery, and then more chocolate flavored versus real chocolate and processed foods, and a lot of reformulations. Again, this is the ability to adapt. You are a company or a business that has, or a restaurant that is focused on chocolate products, and all of a sudden cocoa powder skyrockets. What do you do now? There's another crazy graph in this article. So it says cocoa price has soared. It literally, the beginning of 2024 just literally goes vertical. It's quite insane how expensive it's getting. The Bloomberg article goes on to say, with powder so scarce, a market for alternatives is also emerging. Germany-based Döhler Group earlier this year introduced a cheaper replacement that includes carob powder, a common chocolate swap that comes from an evergreen tree. Ardent Mills LLC, the largest flour miller in North America, developed a wheat-based powder and is now working with customers to use it in baked goods and snacks, which could arrive on grocery shelves within the next year. Ardent Mills wheat-based swap was initially tested in substitution as much as 25% of cocoa powder in baked goods, but the company is continuing to push the envelope by replacing as much as half of a product's powder. A manufacturer might even be able to entirely use the product in offerings where cocoa powder is only necessary to provide color but not flavor. In some cases, food companies are just pushing snack bars and baked goods that focus more on flavors like caramel and vanilla. Ina Dauer, the Global Insight Manager for Euromonitor International, says we are in an era where chocolate indulgence will no longer rely solely on cocoa. So again, this is so akin to what I was just talking about. Cocoa, chocolate, that supply is being hurt. Prices are going up. What are we going to do in the food industry to combat it, to account for it, and to move forward? So that's that story from Bloomberg. All right. Let's talk about some more price news real quick. All right, so this is a story from Food Dive, published on 7/12/2025. Tariffs on meat driving food inflation, ConAgra CFO says. The food and snack maker CEO Sean Connolly said tariff-related costs could add more than $200 million annually to the company's cost of goods sold. So what does this mean? So basically, the tariffs that are mainly on beef and pork are hitting manufacturers and consumers alike, and these new tariffs may push prices even higher. So this adds to existing inflation in protein categories, which the protein industry is still dealing with a lot of inflation. So meat-heavy brands like Slim Jim, Banquet, and Healthy Choice are taking a massive hit. What this could mean for companies may reduce portion sizes. It could increase blended plant/meat SKUs, so maybe not just beef or poultry or different grades, and then it's going to shift to lower cost cuts. So these tariffs, the concern is that they're basically going to intensify inflation in both food service and fast casual menus. The Chicago-based ConAgra Brands is forecasting cost of goods sold inflation to remain elevated in fiscal 2026, with 4% core inflation rate combining with a 3% rise due to tariffs, bringing the total cost of goods inflation to about 7%, according to the company's Thursday earnings release. While the food and snacks company characterized the tariff situation as fluid, its guidance expects a 50% tariff rate on imported tin plate steel and aluminum, a 30% rate on limited imports from China, and a 10% reciprocal rate on imports from certain other unnamed countries, according to the release. Like I said, $200 million annually to cost of goods. The ConAgra CFO Dave Marburger said animal proteins such as beef, chicken, pork, eggs, and turkey had the single biggest impact on these costs, with the costs expected to be inflating double digits in fiscal 2026 based on current estimates and the current rate of tariff implementation. So this is from Food Dive. This is their Dive Insight. I really love this website. Maura Weber-Sadovi, the author for this. So she writes, the company's guidance comes as it reported its fiscal Q4 and fiscal year 2025 period, which ended May 25th, saw net sales drop 4.3% and 3.6% year over year, respectively. The fiscal year's environment proved to be more challenging than they anticipated due to inflation, foreign exchange headwinds, and supply constraints. On Thursday, during a conference call with analysts, Marburger noted that the company anticipated it could mitigate part of the tariff impact by looking for alternate supplies, potentially negotiating with the suppliers to share in this cost, and finding other ways to potentially reduce the usage of the items that are being tariffed. Asked about declining sales, Connolly said the company was looking to get volumes healthy, maximize cash flow in its canned food business, and with innovation looked to start getting some relief with regard to margins. At the same time, the executive said the company has been investing in making its supply chain more robust. So, what does this mean? I am a firm believer that if large companies like a ConAgra, like a McDonald's or Walmart are seeing food supply chain issues, then chefs, restaurants, and other businesses in the food industry will see them as well. And this idea of the already set inflation plus the inflationary effects of the tariffs on meat adding so much to the cost of goods, it's going to affect all of us in the food world that use animal protein. So, again, let's go back to the beginning of this podcast. Vegan, vegetarian, lower protein count menu items might not just be for the vegans and vegetarians coming into your restaurant, but also might be a play to save money while also continuing to ensure that you have a delicious menu. I think this is going to be pretty devastating. I really hope the situation for tariffs is kind of leveled out and, a little bit more thought through, because the food industry, while it seems like markets have been resilient up until a few days ago with the announcement of the new tariffs, the food industry cost of goods has been all over the place. And it's not just tariffs, like we just said, the cocoa industry has its own challenges, but adding more stress to the cost of goods, to the supply chains for the food industry, is just not helping chefs at restaurants. Our next story, this one is pretty interesting. This was put out today, again by Food Dive. Reported on by a couple outlets, but we'll just stick with Food Dive because they make it pretty concise. Ice cream makers to phase out artificial dyes by 2028. It's the first time a segment of the food sector has come together to remove synthetic colors. So this is pretty interesting. And I did not realize that, a segment of the food industry could do this, but it's pretty cool. So basically the oversight is Turkey Hill Dairy and dozens of other U.S. ice cream makers are pledging to remove artificial colors from their products by 2028 as more food makers look to comply with a push by the FDA to rely more on natural ingredients. I want to say I think it's great. More natural ingredients. I do think some stuff gets cut out that isn't necessarily bad and it's just kind of like a sticker shock to read the name. But anything that can get us to some more natural ingredients, I think is a good thing. I think our food supply is really shot. I don't think it's just dyes. I think there's a lot of things going on. And I don't think everything artificial or synthetic should be removed. I think it's a case-by-case basis. Me personally, if food safety and quality can stay, or really food safety can stay, but natural flavors or natural flavorings can actually improve the product or just be, natural, then I think that's a good thing. The commitment to this is spearheaded by the International Dairy Foods Association, which represents the commercial ice cream industry. Companies making more than 90% of the ice cream volume sold in the U.S. are taking part in the pledge, so it's pretty big. And the ice cream commitment includes products sold in grocery stores and parlors supplied by major manufacturers. It does not apply to ice cream made with non-dairy ingredients or made in-house by small shops. And here's the dive. While major food companies have announced commitments to ditch artificial dyes, this announcement represents the first time a segment of the food industry has come together to make the pledge. Andy Jacobs, the chair of the IDFA Ice Cream Segment Board and CEO of ice cream brand Turkey Hill Dairy, said from small independent companies to family-owned businesses going back generations to large multinational companies, we have all come together in a true industry-wide effort to make changes. Many commercial ice cream makers have already phased out certified artificial colors, the IDFA noted. For those still making the transition, the association is convening a working group of ingredients, suppliers, and dairy companies to ensure an adequate supply of alternative ingredients. The IDFA says it will also took the step as federal and state policies remain misaligned, and while the FDA has declared artificial colors safe for use, states such as West Virginia have moved to ban these ingredients in retail or school foods as part of the MAHA movement. U.S. dairy companies have pledged to remove artificial colors in milk, cheese, and yogurt products sold to schools by July 2026. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has asked food companies to voluntarily remove artificial dyes by the end of 2026, though that deadline will appear unrealistic for most of the industry, likely going to take a lot longer. But there is some momentum with food giants such as Kraft, Hershey, and J.M. Smucker having committed to phase out artificial dyes. Nestle, however, has committed to removing artificial dyes by mid-2026, while those just mentioned were by the end of 2027. So it's going to take some time. It's interesting to see. Obviously, there's real legitimacy to what the FDA is going to start demanding with these artificial dyes, and I just wonder how it's going to play out. My goal over the next few months, and I've shared this with Justin, is to have someone come on in food manufacturing to discuss what dyes and artificial ingredients should be removed and are actually harmful, and what else is being removed that we actually need in the food industry that the FDA is just not being aware of. I think there's a blend of both. I think there's harmful stuff going. I also think there's stuff that's used for utility and food preservation that's going to be cut out as well. It'll be interesting to see. But for this specifically, these are dyes. I think it's a net benefit, I think. I would have to think. And the fact that they're willing to do it shows that maybe we get back to a point where there's a little bit more natural coloring in items. It's a bipartisan, it's a consumer issue. It's not even a political issue. I personally would rather have more natural food. At the same time, I enjoy my gummy bears and my Skittles and all that. But anything that can move towards a more healthier alternative or a more natural alternative, I think is positive, as long as you don't risk food safety and as long as the product can actually be shipped to consumers. So interesting to see, and it's a big change for the ice cream industry, and it's cool to see the ice cream industry kind of come together for this. So, all right, this next one is by Axios San Francisco. They're sharing that Korean cuisine is more popular than ever. This is by Nadia Lopez and Carly Mallenbaum. So they basically share that Korean cuisine, from James Beard winning fine dining to gooey corn dog cheese holes on TikTok, is surging in popularity across the U.S. Why this matters, the Bay Area helped make Korean food a staple in America, and that momentum is gaining. They share that in 2024, there was a 10% increase in the number of Korean restaurants in the U.S. per market research from Circana. They also share that fast food chains offering Korean fried chicken, and corn dogs are up about 15% each from last year, with Korean fine dining also on the rise. Korean fried chicken first led the trend, followed by kimchi as a condiment and Korean barbecue sauces hitting grocery shelves. I'm thinking of banchan, so good. And Drew Paik, the executive director of the Korean American Community Foundation of San Francisco, told Axios, seeing how far Korean cuisine has come, it's going beyond just being a fad. And I would agree. Korean cuisine is awesome. I would highly suggest you learn to cook it, go eat it, try it, learn it. It's truly so delicious. Between the lines, Los Angeles remains the center of California's Korean diaspora, though San Francisco was the first stop for many early immigrants, and today the Bay Area is home to 100,000 Koreans, the sixth largest Asian population in the region. The big picture they share is Hallyu refers to the global rise and spread of Korean culture. The phenomenon was spearheaded by the South Korean government decades ago to boost the country's economy, writes media studies scholar Dal Yong-jin in his book Understanding the Korean Wave. But Pak says that it's important not to let rising visibility fuel model minority myths or overlook those in the community who are struggling. They then go on to share, and I'll share in the link if you're in San Francisco, check these places out. The city's thriving Korean food scene. And yeah, it's just interesting to see. The fact that's really interesting for me is the 10% increase in the number of Korean restaurants in the U.S. I mean, just anecdotally, living in the Illinois suburbs, there's a ton of Korean fried chicken places around. I know that's not all Korean cuisine, but the idea of what they were saying about fast food. And I just think that Korean food in general, some segments of that cuisine are being implemented and shared to the mass market in different ways, and they're finding success. So really cool to see. And yeah, I think it's awesome. So really just wanted to share that. All right, last story today. This one was a cool one. José Andrés, chef, humanitarian, and comic book hero. That is an article title from Eater. This is by Jaya Saxena, and she writes, the chef and World Central Kitchen founder will make an appearance in DC's Taste of Justice series. And they go on to write, it turns out Superman knows who José Andrés is. On Monday, the chef and founder of the nonprofit World Central Kitchen announced he's teamed up with author Andrew Aiden on a new episode in the DC series Taste of Justice, which features comic book heroes learning to cook. The comic, illustrated by Domo Stand, will be published on July 16th, but Andrés posted a panel from it, in which Superman says he's written a story on Andrés in the past. I'm lucky enough to work with Aiden on a story about feeding people during a disaster, Andrés wrote on Instagram. And there's a panel here of Superman, and he says, there's in the thought bubble, there's a chef who specializes in feeding people after disasters, José Andrés. I did a story on him, I've got his number. This is José Andrés' copy on Instagram sharing this. He goes, I'm excited to tell you about a new DC official comic starring Aquaman, Superman, and me. I wrote it with the brilliant Andrew Aiden, who has an incredible story. Together with Georgia's legendary Congressman John Lewis, he wrote an amazing graphic novel called March about the civil rights movement. Now Andrew is working on a new series called Taste of Justice, telling food stories with superheroes, and I'm lucky enough to work with him on a story about feeding people during a disaster. It's officially out on July 16th, but today you can read an interview with Andrew on my Substack, Longer Tables, and learn about his other work, including an amazing project sharing stories from Appalachia. Aiden is best known for teaming up with the late Representative John Lewis on the comic series March. And José Andrés goes on to share that Andrew and I recently connected through our mutual friend Steve Orlando, who wrote Feeding Dangerously with me, a graphic novel about the work of World Central Kitchen. Right up by Jaya, I would definitely suggest reading the link in the article. But yeah, I mean, Chef Jose Andres, real life superhero. No other way around it. I think he's a model for chefs. He's a model for humans. He's used his talents to feed many, many, many people. I've done a fundraiser with them during COVID with WCK. I had them on the podcast. I find their work amazing. And it's just what a noble act to go feed people in need. And to be able to be shouted out by Superman shows the impact a chef can have. Chef Jose Andres I think he is the most impactful chef of our generation. You could argue on food, there's a lot of different people, but when it comes to your impact as a chef and how you impact the culture, the community, and real world people, I don't know that there's anyone more impactful than Jose Andres. Shining a light on the need for food to be fed to people. The idea that after natural disasters, food insecurity is one of the worst fallout problems of a natural disaster. So to have him be shouted out, to treat him like a superhero, to treat him with the honor and the spotlight he deserves is, I think, really great. I will also say I did go see the new Superman movie this last weekend and absolutely loved it. I thought it was much needed. It was a story of kindness, of hope. Made me fall in love with Superman again. So really, I think it's really cool timing. I mean, what great timing, great Superman movie, and then Superman shouts you out in the comics. So shout out to Chef Andres. I think that's awesome. And just happy to see him getting his flowers on this. So that being said, there was one other topic I wanted to go chat about on this podcast. And it's a topic I've brought up before on Line Cook Thoughts, but I wanted to bring it up here again as well. The idea of your career path. I think that the next few years in the food industry are going to be tough. I think maybe not tough as a whole, but like the industry is going to face headwinds with inflation, with cost of goods, with natural disasters, with shifting economic headwinds, with shifting consumer preferences, with shifting government regulation. There is so much going on. I think the biggest piece of advice I can give to anyone right now in the food industry is to be open to new options, be open to new possibilities, and allow fate to introduce you to new positions, new jobs, new opportunities, and new ways you can use your skills. If you would have told me when I started at culinary school that I wouldn't be a Michelin star chef, but I'd actually be working in food manufacturing and doing a food podcast, never would have believed you. Kind of would have been like, what are you talking about? All I want to do is be a 3 Michelin star head chef in a major city. How that has changed so much. And for the better, and for myself for the better. And I think that if we resist over the next few years, if there's something calling you and you resist it, you're going to regret it. And I think if you have opportunities that seem exciting, even though they might seem scary, even though they might be nerve-wracking, even if you might not feel fully qualified. The food industry needs talented people. Food manufacturing needs it. Restaurants need it. Food marketing needs it. Food content creation needs it. Being open to trying new things, being open to take new paths, learn from new people, and having the humility to go in to new positions and new jobs or new opportunities. Maybe not knowing everything, but knowing you're going to learn and give it your all, I think will serve you so well in the next few years. A lot is changing. What consumers expect of us, the amount they're willing to pay, how they're buying food, where they're buying food, the mediums in which they buy food. A lot is going to change from now to 2030. A lot. And we don't even know the half of it yet. So my biggest challenge is for anyone listening to this, take this weekend, take your days off. If your weekend's a Monday, Tuesday, take your days off and just do some research. Look for tertiary positions or opportunities outside of restaurants if you work in restaurants. Look for different aspects of jobs outside of your food manufacturing job or your food chef job. Just take opportunity to see what is going on in the food world. Take a step back and really look at what else is out there. Because I've talked to a lot of people recently about everything going on, and I think the biggest takeaway I've learned is the people that are winning right now, the people that are moving and feel fulfilled, even though there's a ton of stuff going on in the food world, are those that have been willing to be humble, have humility, and go in and try different things and try and take new opportunities on, and those that are willing to learn and give their all. And so that's my biggest piece of advice for you over the next few years, really. And it's advice that I have to stick to myself. A big reason why I love doing this podcast is the ability to learn what's going on in the food world, to keep you all informed, but also to keep myself informed. And to be able to constantly do that, to push myself to talk about cocoa powder prices and to try to understand meat tariffs and, look at ice cream maker policy, like all of that serves me. And what you do to learn and to grow and to focus yourself and hone your skills and add to your repertoire, to be able to do that is going to serve you so, so much in the coming years. So that's my biggest piece of advice. Thank you all again for listening to this Repertoire Report. Excited to have Justin on next week. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast platform, a simple follow and share would be great. And yeah, I just hope you all have a great week. Getting through the middle of summer. I know some of you are cranking out those plates right now. It's probably so busy. But just wishing you the best, wishing you all well, keeping you informed. Really, I think information is key. And if it's not us, it's someone else. But being informed on the food industry, knowing these trends, knowing everything, the high-level aspects of cocoa prices, ice cream diets, of how tariffs are affecting inflation, how GLP-1 consumers are going to be dining, all of that is so, so important. And yes, it's a pitch to keep listening to the show, but it's also a pitch outside of the show to be aware of what's going on. I remember a lesson, it was like the best servers or wait staff are those who can talk about whatever sports game is going on and have those conversations about whatever pop cultural moment is going on with their staff. I think the best thing for a food industry professional, the best ones stay informed, they know what's going on, broader themes around the industry, and they can speak to the key aspects and components of the industry in ways that showcase that they're invested and interested in the whole system and not just what's right in front of them. So staying informed, knowing what's going on, and making career moves with that information, I think is super, super important. So thank you all again for listening. I'm going to go make some dinner, and I'll see you on the next Repertoire Report.